Phil, dude, welcome to Korea, man.
Thanks, Jim. What's going on?
Your first time in Korea.
Yeah.
So last night, Phil hosted the first ever official Korea SparkLabs poker event. And so, Phil, that was an awesome success. So you're coming back every year, right?
Well, we'll see.
Okay, so let me just give a warning to the audience. This talk has almost nothing to do with poker. So if you want poker tips, unfortunately, Phil is not going to be talking about poker. But he is a New York Times best-selling author.
New York Times best-selling author?
Yes, dude.
Woohoo!
All right, take it easy, Phil. But if you want to find out how to play poker, you can read one of his books on how to win in poker. But, oops, let me pull this out because I don't know it by heart.
You forgot what you were going to say?
No, let me take care
Aren't you the CEO of the new SparkLabs SPAC?
Yes, but I don't have your poker record
Okay, go
memorized.
ahead. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so just let me take care of this. So Phil has won a world record 16 World Series championships. He has more bracelets than anyone in history. He was inducted into the Poker Hall of Fame in 2007. I mean, you have so many wins, so many awards. I can't name them, obviously. Amazing longevity. And many people, including myself, consider you the greatest poker player of all time.
Ooh, the greatest poker player of all. That has a nice ring to it.
Okay, so I have actually known Phil for 40 years. So before he was the famous Phil Hellmuth. And I've been friends with his brother and his family. So the thing that always surprises me, and everybody here who's had a chance to meet Phil, he is the nicest, sweetest, most generous guy that you'll meet. He's like a teddy bear. So, and I've seen him with his kids. He is so patient, kind. So it always kind of makes me wonder this. You have this reputation of being a poker brat, and kind of a jerk. Like, where does that come from? Or
a jerk? You had to bring that up? Poker brat? Yes, I can be a little poker bratty. I think what happens is sometimes the concept of justice. You think of justice and you play poker beautifully for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and then someone does something crazy and knocks you out. And I'm like, that's not fair. And I start da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, swearing, getting upset. And then all of a sudden I have the reputation as the poker brat.
You're probably the most YouTube poker player in the world. I'm sure there's a lot of clips of you.
Sometimes I look and there's like 150 million views of me going crazy. So.
But as I've said, so we're not going to talk about poker because I think, yes, Phil is a poker player. He's more than just one of the greatest poker players of all time. He is really somebody, and I think it's very rare in his industry. I think he's actually the only one to his extent. He has transcended poker. He has definitely risen above poker. He's actually an amazing entrepreneur, business person, investor. And I think in TikTok, you're called the Billionaire Wrangler.
On TikTok, I'm called the Billionaire Wrangler, yeah.
What that means is all the billionaires, and I've met many of them, right? So whether it's business, finance, all these billionaires want to hang out with Phil. Famous artists, entertainers, sports, the greatest sports legends in history, they all want to hang out with you. And I'm guessing it's not about, maybe poker, but why? Why do they want to hang out?
Fame gets you in the door, but then I think it's authenticity. I always am who I am, and I think that helps a lot. People know what they get. Also, at that level, with a lot of the people I'm hanging out with, we never ask each other for anything, right? They might say, hey, Phil, I'm sending my plane to New York because there's a hurricane coming and I want to get you out. You can't accept. You're like, hey, thank you very much. I'll be all right. I think, Jim, it's a funny question. You asked my wife, Jim and I were in Tokyo before this. He asked my wife, hey, what do you spend your money on? And my wife said startups. That's how I spend my money. So for me, it's been a lot of fun. I've advised 17 companies, mostly early stage companies. Genies, I helped a little bit, but most early stage companies, and it's been a lot of fun for me to help them raise money, to introduce them to people, and then when the time is right, I play poker with a lot of the biggest venture capitalists, VCs in the world. So for me, but it's also strategic vision, right? So for me, it's been fun, and I think now I've invested in 30 startups. So for me, that path is fun. I always say 1 hour a month, but if I can do something that can help the company 10%, and they've given me 2 or 3%, check, 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 and so that's been fun for me. And then you and I connected over, the SparkLabs SPAC, which is pretty fun.
Yep, we're going to take a great company public, Phil, together.
A SparkLabs company, presumably.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned about the investment, and that was something that I've known you for a long time, right? So I knew, but I think many people would not know that you really are an amazing, prolific startup investor. Startups come to you. Why is that? I mean, why do they come to you versus other people?
I've been lucky because some of the early startup CEOs that came to me, and I don't talk to the second in command or the third, I only talk to the CEO, founder, and I think I've helped. I think one of the things when you're a startup is you need to raise money. You're not ready for VCs, right? You need $1 million, you need $500,000, you need a smaller amount. And so I have a network of investors in Chicago, New York, Miami, Texas, and the Bay Area that will put money into deals that I do. And so that's really helpful for the founders. That's maybe, and then strategic vision, right? So the first phone call, I see what they're doing, I like what they're doing, but the idea to me is super important, but not as important as the founder. And then my people skills can kick in, and I can evaluate, can this founder CEO grow this company into a $1 billion company? Yes or no? And then, spend a couple of hours on the phone with them. Then we'll meet a week later for a couple of hours on the phone. And usually by then they want me involved as an advisor. And then I have to determine, because I'm busy, I have to determine, is this something I want to do?
No, and so the interesting thing, I know we were talking about this, but how do you make your decisions about investment? And I know it has to do with people first, right? Because you kind of judge the person. And if you believe in the person, then you invest. And I think that's a great message for any of the startup founders and companies we're even
anybody in
today.
this room, I mean, like, you have to show a commitment, and I think my friend Bill Lee, who hates press, with one of the best businessmen in the world, who he would say that founders look into the abyss while chewing broken glass. That's what he said. It's a rough thing to do. And I applaud many of the people in the audience that are founding these companies because it's extraordinarily difficult. And I don't think that the founders get enough support from their family, A lot of family is, what are you doing? Family can almost be a hurdle sometimes. And then when they finally have a great day and they raise $5 million and they call their family's like, they think there's something wrong with their ego. It's hard. It's a really hard thing.
So do you think, not talking necessarily about, how you play poker, but the skills that made you successful in poker, do you think that helps you when you kind of assess people, business partners and things like that? Or?
Definitely. I mean, like, at the table, you have to understand if someone is weak or strong, and then have the heart and the discipline to make a great move based on what you think they have. And in the startup world, right, which I love, it's very similar. Does this person have the conviction, the knowledge, and then are they capable of maybe making a pivot, right? Can they pivot from this to that? And so that's something you have to evaluate pretty quickly. And in poker, you have to evaluate it in minutes. At least you have a couple of weeks with some of the founders to evaluate that.
So you don't have to name names, or you can name names if you want to. You play with all these very, very famous people. You know, obviously everybody here would know these people. Can you kind of give us an interesting story maybe of one of them, you know, and kind of, you know, playing poker with them?
So I host the Golden State Warriors charity poker tournament every year. And, you know, Steph Curry, a fantastic poker player, fantastic at basketball, obviously. You know, one of the greatest of all time. Amazing golfer, but at poker, he's really good. So's Clay. And so a lot of the Warriors players come and play in our regular poker game. Draymond Green. So he's been in the press a little bit these last couple days. And he's just a great guy, great human being in person. And if he loses a big pot, it's like, okay, whatever, you know. But on the basketball court, he's a bit like me, right? Draymond Green is a basketball brat, right? And I'm a poker brat, so we kind of bond on that a little bit.
Hey, Phil, so switching...
You were with me in Chicago.
Yeah.
In Lake Geneva. And we raised a bunch of money for the SPAC from some of the, I call them the Chicago billionaires. And that was fun. And you played poker. And your wife, Kelly, was really worried that you were going to lose $10,000. Hi, Kelly. And, you know, what happened? You won $8,000, and I think she was thrilled. But that was just incredible, right? We're on a mansion on Lake Geneva where they have like, what do they have, like 6 boats, a staff. They have the mansion. They have the place next door. They have a barn full of video games, just filled with video games, apple orchard. And so that's one of those kind of weird spots. You know, and I always bring my sons, and we'll rave one and have fun. But yeah, that's the other side of it, right? That's the late stage stuff. So I've had a lot of fun in the startup ecosystem, but also I was involved in 3 SPACs, and that we successfully launched. I found the first company. What were the chances the poker player found the company? I called the founder and I said, hey, you know, they gave me a $2 million bonus. I said, did you think I was going to find the company? He's like, yeah, actually, I gave you a 10% chance. I was like, whatever.
Well, so not to embarrass one of the SparkLabs founders, but, and for disclosure, so Bernard Moon, who's one of the founders, when I was starting this SPAC, I said, oh yeah, I'm going to bring Phil Hellmuth in, you know? And Bernard was like, Phil Hellmuth, the poker player? And then Phil, literally in 2 days, he reached out to his ecosystem and raised half our money like in 48 hours. And then Bernard was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. So.
Well, that was fun because, yeah, they said, hey, Phil, we need $5 million, you know, in sponsorship money. And I said, okay, let me take a crack. And I'd never tried to raise $5 million before. And 48 hours later, it was sold out. And then people were coming to me and like, hey, we want to get this guy in and this guy in. And I'm like, no, sorry, we're full. But that was fun because I didn't know if I could do it. But the project also sold itself, you as CEO, and it just makes sense, right? SparkLabs has funded 460 companies, right? Seeded 460 companies, and you look at the A and the B and the C, and there's not much there, right, with SparkLabs. And now all of a sudden we're talking about, you know, potentially taking SparkLabs companies public. And yeah, hopefully I earned my, is Bernard here? Hopefully Bernard has a little respect for me by now. I don't know.
Well, so any startups out there, no, this is, and I'm not even joking. If anybody has like a U.S., maybe, you know, North America interest strategy of expanding, you know, we'll definitely hook you up with Phil. I'm sure he can help out, you know.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I think one of the things the startup CEOs like is just the network that I have. So, one email away from some, you know, pretty fun people.
So Phil, I also want to, obviously not just about investing, but as I said, Phil is a New York Times bestselling author. He's written several books. And so one book he's written is called Positivity. And, you know, if you look it up, buy it on, I guess it's not Amazon here, Coupang maybe they sell it. But it's been promoted by Sheryl Sandberg, I know who's a close friend of yours, Draymond Green, but Tony Robbins, who's the famous motivational speaker. Every time he talks, he tells people to buy Phil's book.
That was incredible to me because I'm a poker player, right? And I think I can do more. But then I wrote this book, 8 Life Tips, and I called it #Positivity, and I sent it to Tony. And Tony loved it, Sheryl loved it. And then I found out that Tony Robbins is telling people to buy my book in his advanced seminars. And I'm like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, it just made my day. When someone came and they told me that, and I was just like, oh my God. So sometimes we have the mind-blowing stuff happen to us, and we try not to get too egotistical. Honey, sorry if I'm too egotistical right now. I apologize. I love you.
Okay, so we don't have time for 8 tips, but maybe you could kind of give an important one. I know one of the precepts in the book is you're always kind of in the right place at the right time.
Yeah,
Maybe
so
you could talk to
the
that.
book is Positivity, You're Always in the Right Place at the Right Time, is the subtitle. And so the one that I'll say this one, I like this one. So many of the people in this audience have similar philosophies, and that's that you're always in the right place at the right time. So I give this example of someone at home, and they want to start a sports bar. Okay? And they lay out to their wife and children the 8 perfect reasons for the sports bar. Then they say, Martha, to their wife, Martha, please pass the peas. You know, the green peas? And I got that from Carl Westcott, who's an amazing human being. And that means the idea is done. Next door, the other person says, hey, to his wife and children, I have 8 reasons why the sports bar is going to take off. But he makes one mental note. He's going to stop by his favorite sports bar on the way home from work the next day. So you can imagine walking into the sports bar. He opens the door, and anything can happen from there. So the one guy had the great idea, doesn't understand he's in the right place at the right time. The other guy had the great idea, and he acted on it. And behind that door, he could walk in. The bar owner could say, hey, maybe I'll sell you the bar. Maybe I'll help you raise money. So behind that door exists 8 more doors. And so the founders here all understand that, right? They've opened one door, they've opened the second door, now they've opened the third door, and they're moving forward and understanding that concept. But most of the world does not understand that they're in the right place at the right time every day.
I mean, so basically you're saying don't be a victim. You know, there's always opportunity there. It's the winners and, the great business leaders. They take advantage of the opportunity that's always there, kind of.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, Phil, and any other in general, because obviously we're here with the SparkLabs, the new class. Any advice that you would give them?
I mean,
going forward?
I think there is one other. So the 8 life tips, that's the first one. You're always in the right place at the right time. Act on it. Second one I like is to take your yearly goals. 23 goals, write it down on a piece of paper, and tape it to your bathroom mirror. That way every day you're thinking about that goal. And it's amazing, hundreds of people or thousands of people have used this tip, and they achieve their number 1 goal and their number 2 goal. So you wake up in the morning when your mind is fresh, and you're brushing your hair, you're brushing your teeth and you're combing your hair, and there's that list, 23 goals. And you're not going to actively read it every day, but some part of your mind is going to see that 3 weeks in. And it kind of makes you leave the house more focused on achieving the most important goal. And so that's another one from my book, a second tip of the 8.
And any last thoughts? I know we're running out of time, but maybe last thoughts for just the people here or startup companies?
No, I think being a startup founder and CEO is very difficult, and so I would encourage people to not give up, but also try to maintain a positive attitude. And I know how hard that is.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Phil. Welcome to Seoul again.